Today's video is a review video. I will be reviewing the Maybelline The Nudes palette. If you've been to a drugstore recently, you have probably seen this palette front and center of any Maybelline display. I feel like whenever I walk into a CVS or Walgreens or I flip through the pages of my favorite magazine, I always see this palette being advertised. I have had this makeup product in my collection for a couple months now, so I've had time to experiment with it, create looks, and form some opinions on this palette. Since this is a fairly new product and has received a lot of buzz in the drugstore world because it is one of the only drugstore palettes out there, I decided to do a review video. So keep on watching if you are interested in hearing my thoughts and opinions on the Maybelline The Nudes palette. Like I said, this palette has been out for a couple months now. It was released as part of the Maybelline Fall 2014 collection. When I found out that Maybelline was releasing a neutral colored drugstore palette, I knew I wanted to get my hands on this palette immediately because, like I mentioned before, I feel like the drugstores don't offer too many makeup palettes. The price of this palette ranges from about $10 to $15 depending on what drugstore you buy it from. The palette includes 12 neutral eyeshadow colors ranging from shimmery to matte. Moving on to the packaging, it's a slim plastic black packaging. Because it is very tiny and slim, it would be great for traveling. The only thing that it doesn't have that makes it kind of tricky to travel with is it doesn't have a mirror. I was kind of let down that it didn't have a mirror because I feel like every eyeshadow palette has a mirror. One of the cool features of this product is that on the back it has a diagram. So it splits up the colors into duos, trios, and quads. Whenever I buy a eyeshadow palette, like a palette that has more than 4 eyeshadows in it, I find myself overwhelmed with all the colors and not sure what colors to apply to my lid, my crease, outer corner, and so on. I find this diagram very helpful for people like me or even for beginners because it tells you what colors go good together. Now moving on to one of the most important things for any makeup product, and that is the formula. I feel like the gold and bronze colors right here have the best pigmentation and best formula. Then when it comes to these light shimmery shades right here, I feel like they are very sheer, very dry, and chalky. They don't apply too well. I like how this palette features some nice matte shades, but I have to admit the matte shades are very dry and sheer, and they're very hard to blend, so that's kind of a bummer. For the most part, these eyeshadows are very dry, which makes them hard to apply and lack pigmentation. I am so used to my Urban Decay eyeshadows that have that like buttery and velvety formula that applies so nicely, so pigmented, and blends very easy. To explain the colors, I'm going to break them down into quads. These 4 colors right here create the first quad. This color right here is that shimmery pink color. It's very sheer, it has a lot of fallout. Then this color right here looks like it's matte, but it does have some sparkle. It's a light brown, it applies lighter than it looks. This color right here is a satin finish. It's like a medium brown color, so it is a good crease color. This is one of those few colors in the palette that does blend and apply nicely. This color right here is your matte dark brown color. It is on the chalky side, but if you do have time and patience, it can blend nicely into the crease. This second quad right here features more of those warm tone neutral colors. This is a matte vanilla shade that I was excited for because I thought it was going to be the perfect brow bone and inner corner highlight, but the pigmentation sucks. When you apply it, it barely shows up. If I had to choose a winner for somewhat decent pigmentation, it would be this bronze color. Right here is a beautiful shimmery gold color, but sadly, it did not live up to my expectations. Then lastly, right here is a shimmery rust color. Again, this is very similar to that bronze color. It does have decent pigmentation. The last quad in the palette is right here, and this features more of the cool toned neutral colors. So these colors would work for like a smoky eye or for a nighttime look. Right here is a matte gray color. It applies nicely for the crease. This is a darker matte gray taupe color. This frosty white color here is very, very sheer. If you are going to apply it to your lid, I would use some sort of like champagne cream eyeshadow base to really make the color stay, last, and stand out. This palette also includes a very dark matte color. It looks black, but when you apply it, you would find out that it's just a very dark gray color. So one of the questions that I got about this palette is it a dupe for the Urban Decay Naked palette? Nothing will ever replace my Naked palettes. I love Urban Decay eyeshadows in general because I love that buttery velvet texture. I feel like the Maybelline palette and the Urban Decay palette, you can't compare the two because they are so different. They are so different in color, so different in formula and pigmentation. I feel like I'm hating on this palette. I do like it. I tend to use it some days. I try to incorporate this palette into looks, but it's not my favorite. But don't worry, I still love the Maybelline brand. Maybelline is one of my favorite drugstore brands. I just feel like this palette kind of failed my Maybelline expectations. I do recommend this palette if you are a beginner. I think the guidelines on the back really teach you stuff about makeup, but if you are someone like me who has tons and tons of neutral palettes and eyeshadows, I say skip this. So my final verdict on this palette is that I think it was a great idea, great release by Maybelline, and who knows, maybe Maybelline has inspired other drugstore companies to release other drugstore palettes. If I had to give this palette a grade, I would grade it a B-. I don't entirely hate this palette. I am just disappointed with this palette. I'm disappointed with the pigmentation and the formula, but that doesn't mean that I don't use it. Like I said, I do try to incorporate this palette into many looks, but whenever I use this palette, I am just left disappointed and frustrated because it does take a lot of time to build up the colors and blend the colors. I hope you guys enjoyed watching a review video on the Nudes palette. I really enjoy doing review videos because it gives me a chance to offer my views and opinions of some makeup that I have in my collection. If you have any products you want me to do a review video on, let me know in the comments below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!